Head coach Ron Hunter and Georgia State basketball just back from the sweep of the state of Louisiana. Wins over Louisiana Monroe and Louisiana Lafayette. And on this week's Georgia State Sports Update, we're talking Georgia State basketball. Hi again, Panther fans, and welcome to this week's Georgia State Sports Update. We're back after a brief hiatus, and we're talking Georgia State basketball. Dave Cohen joined in studio by head coach Ron Hunter in this first segment. Panthers literally just landed not too long ago from Lafayette, Louisiana. Georgia State, a sweep of their Sun Belt road trip through the state of Louisiana. Not a lot of teams can say that they've accomplished that. Coach, welcome to the show this week, and it turned out to be a great trip in the state of Louisiana this week.
Yeah, it really did. We needed to kind of get back in the race, and we lost a home game. So when you lose a home game, you got to go and win 2 road games. And it's the first time we've been healthy since the Middle Tennessee game that we won with both of our backcourt. So this is the first time we started this backcourt, and they've been on the floor together since the middle game.
So your 10th win of the season with the win over Louisiana Lafayette. We're going to talk about both those games in Monroe and at Lafayette. But you get to the 10-win mark. This is kind of like, as along this journey, that's kind of the first marking point as we continue here into mid-January and on into February.
Well, it's funny you say that because I usually don't know what the record is. I'm more concerned about how we're playing.
That's for the radio guys.
Yeah, that's for you guys, radio and media. But I just like that we're playing better. We got our backcourt back at the Monroe game, and although we weren't sharp, I thought we played hard and we looked like a different team. I felt that we played the right way, and then it led over into the Monroe game. And again, I think we got 48 points from our backcourt, and that's the starters. Then you had that 11 from Devin Mitchell, who actually played well off the bench also. So we're just starting to play good basketball now because we're healthy. Again, it doesn't matter how good you are sometimes. When you're not healthy, it's hard to play.
Let's just step back real quick because, again, the show's been on hiatus during the holiday break here at Georgia State. You go back before the Panthers left to go to Louisiana. 2 home games. We had a close loss at home against Troy, which Devin could have tied or almost tied with a 3-point shot. Go back 1 game prior to that, Devin Mitchell hits what turned out to be the game-winning shot, 3-pointer on the left baseline out of the corner to beat South Alabama. So you came in 1-1 after that 2-game home stretch, and you did not know at the time, I don't believe, that when we were going to Louisiana, you were going to get both Isaiah Williams and DeMarcus Simons back for that trip, which made the trip all that more exciting because you had those 2 back just as we got on the plane.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. For us, it started at Christmas. We practiced on Christmas night getting ready for UMass, and we got back and found out that DeMarcus had the knee problem. Yeah. And that really kind of threw us off. And then all of a sudden, Zeke was hurt and we got sick, and then 4 or 5 guys got the flu at the same time. And so it just snowballed. We couldn't get ourselves out of it. So we're just trying to fight to kind of get through that. And then all of a sudden we got the news that he can play. The bad news about that is that he didn't practice. And so his first time on the court was a game against Monroe, who's one of the better defensive teams in the league. But again, I thought that was good for him to kind of just get some rhythm. And then it showed in the Lafayette game. And I think that's what you'll see. We'll continue to get better because we'll have that same lineup out on the floor for the rest of the season.
And he only scored 1 point at Monroe, and that was a free throw, obviously very late in the ball game. You can kind of tell I think you substituted him in and out a little more. You could see he was just a tiny bit winded, and his legs were not maybe 100%, obviously, but he looked a lot better. Granted, 2 days later in the game at Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah, I tell you, he's a freak of nature. And again, I just think the timing of it. I don't care how good you are when you take that much time away from basketball and you just all sit and turn it into play. It's going to take some time. It just took him 1 game and 1 day, and he was able to come back. But again, it helps our team. I thought defensively he was really good at Monroe. And I thought, again, our defense was better. We hold them to, I think, 35% shooting. And again, we haven't done that since he's been gone. And then all of a sudden he comes back, and then offensively, he saw the ball go through the basket, and he made some plays for some other guys, and it really helped.
Which is funny because on the radio, in the pregame show the coach and I do before each ball game, you're telling me Dr. Griffin lets you know that DeMarcus is ready to go and Isaiah's ready to go. We may start him out slow, about 10 minutes. I don't remember. I have to look and see how many minutes he played. They played 29.
Yeah, I held him back.
Yeah.
I did. I held him back. He wanted 30, and I said, no, you're just playing 29. So.
And then you held him back again at Lafayette. You only played 32.
Right. But he's a key part of what we do. I mean, again, that's when we had the days of Ryan Hare and RJ. It's like trying to play without those guys. When I don't care who you are. When your best team doesn't play with your best guard, it's gonna be a struggle for a period of time. So, but I thought we did a good job of weathering the storm. And that's what we're able to do. And so all of a sudden now we got the swagger back and our confidence is back and we got our backcourt back.
Again, we're talking to Georgia State's head basketball coach Ron Hunter here in the Georgia State Sports Update. You know, what we talked about just a minute ago coming out of Statesboro with, a number of guys battling the flu and now injuries at the time to Isaiah Williams and DeMarcus Simons. Almost every team at some point over a 30-game schedule is going to battle that. I mean, even the best teams that we've seen here at Georgia State, whether, in the time you've been here, there's always been a couple of bumps in the road for one reason or another.
Yeah, one thing about injuries and illnesses is that, again, you don't know when it's going to come. It's very difficult to prepare for them.
And my point is how teams come out of it, which we've come out of it very well.
Yeah, the one thing is it depends on a lot of times how long it goes. You could probably get away with one game without having your best player out on the floor, but over a time of 3 or 4 games, it catches up to you. But I thought some guys who hadn't played got a little bit better, and I think what you'll see is that's going to help us down the stretch run. It'll also help us at the conference tournament when you got to win those 3 games in 3 nights. And so it'll show us our depth in that regards. But again, every team goes through the ups and downs of the season. Again, I don't care if you're the number 1 team in the country or you're the bottom team. You have ups and downs, and so we kind of weathered the storm when we were down in the valley, and now all of a sudden we're trying to get back to that mountaintop.
Well, again, it goes back to scheduling. We talked about the gauntlet on the radio where you had us going to Old Dominion. We come back and we're going to Middle Tennessee State, which is one of the best wins of the season so far, along with the win at Louisiana Lafayette. Come back, you've got the Minutemen of UMass out of the Atlantic 10, and thank you to the Sun Belt Conference. We're opening conference play on the road at Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
tough stretch there to get ready.
A real tough stretch. And you start the season at Mississippi State, at Auburn, or Purdue. And so again, we didn't make it easy for ourselves, but I think what you're seeing is starting to pay off for us now. If you look at, again, and I think Lafayette, if you look at their schedule, where they've got a lot of wins early, they were able, he knows he had a young team, so you kind of schedule, might schedule a little softer than you normally would. And so, that's why schedule is important, depending on the team that you got. But I thought, again, playing at Purdue, playing at Mississippi State, playing at Auburn really helped us, and playing at Middle Tennessee State helped us play, whether it was at Monroe or whether it was at Lafayette.
When we've been talking about Jeremy Hollowell and talking about kind of alleviating some of that scoring pressure that he does feel, and he does feel it. But he had a pretty good trip. He had, 19 at Lafayette, and go back to Monroe. He ended up with a game-high 24. But we've got other guys that are now coming in and starting to complement him, if you want to word it that way, from an offensive standpoint. Whether it's Malik, who had tied a career-high 19 at Monroe, or whether, like in Lafayette, you got Isaiah Williams and DeMarcus Simons rising up and scoring 24 points apiece.
Yeah, I think Jeremy's playing his best basketball of his career right now, and I think a lot of it has to do with DeMarcus because he takes the ball handling away. And now Jeremy can just go be that player on the wing that can drive and catch and shoot, doesn't have to try to initiate it or force it or try to create a basket for someone else. And so when he's not doing that, he's really good. And so now with Zeke and DeMarcus up top and then Isaiah Dennis kind of filling that role also, those 3 ball handlers are really helping. And like you said, Malik's giving us a lot of help with the ball handling. So then Jeremy now doesn't have to handle the ball as much. And then you look at our turnovers, so you notice the turnovers are now down. Yeah,
and, did really well in the turnover category in both those games at Monroe and at Louisiana Lafayette. Real quick, just to recap, 73-65. It went to overtime in Monroe, but we got out of Monroe with a win, got on the bus, and went right to Lafayette.
Yeah, the great thing about what happened this year is that, last year we were young and in a lot of positions, but I wouldn't say young and inexperienced, and we lost 4 or 5 of those close games. We talked about that. We didn't finish. This year we're doing a great job of finishing games, and that's kind of been our mantra. We talked about from June 5th when we came back from summer school. We wanted to finish. We wanted to finish the game, finish the practice, finish the season, where last year we just felt like we didn't do that.
Some of those pendulum games that more often than not this year have swung back in our favor. All right, so the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, you and I were talking on the radio pregame show. These 2 schools prior to the game the other night had only played a total of 12 times. Georgia State led the all-time series 7-5. Now it's 8-5. But as you told me, and I kind of agree with you on this, obviously, why there's such a heated rivalry between Georgia State and Louisiana Lafayette is because so many of those games in recent seasons have been big games. most notably down in New Orleans in the tournament.
Well, you know, they've been big games for championships. They've been in front of huge crowds. Some of our larger crowds at Georgia State when Lafayette's come in, and you know, then you talk about the championship games in the Sun Belt tournament, and so it seems like we're always playing, you know, for first or second place at that particular time. So again, they've always been big games, and so they tend to kind of get a little worked up when we come to town. And
it was chippy before the game tipped off the other night.
You know, it's one of the few places in the country where I'm not Ron Hunter. I got more names in Lafayette than I care to listen to.
And none that you can say.
I can't say on the air, but I've got more names in that city than anywhere else in the country. But it's a great rivalry. They're good. They're well coached, and I like that. I like that it's a little chippy, and again, you know, there was no rah-rah speeches for us. I mean, you know, I wiped everything off the board and said I just wrote the word Lafayette on there, and I think that was enough, and the guys were ready to go play.
Yeah, and we talked to Jeremy on the radio in the pregame. He likes playing in that environment. A lot of players really embrace being the bad guy in an arena like that.
Well, if you look, we've had a lot of success there on the road at Lafayette. It's one of the places we've had a ton of success on the road. Our kids get up to go play there, and so and again, it's a respect because again, they've been one of the better teams in the Sun Belt for a long time, and we've had some great battles, and we'll continue to have them.
All right, well, coming up as we wrap up with Georgia State's head basketball coach Ron Hunter, after being in Louisiana for 4 or 5 days, it was great to get back, but you got a couple of tough home games coming up. Coastal Carolina is the newcomer in the Sun Belt Conference, and you look at the standings, they're currently in second place behind Georgia Southern. They're 4-1 in league play. You've got them Saturday, followed by Appalachian State coming up next Monday.
Yeah, they're off to a good start. They've, again, they did what they were supposed to do. They split on the road and they won at home, which is kind of the formula to kind of stay in there. And so this is probably a big swing for them coming to Georgia. And so now we've got to make sure that we take care of home. We got ourselves back in by winning those road games, and so we've got to now take care of home. We've got to get our fans back. We got to get our students back in that section and kind of give us that extra 10 points that we usually get at home, so we can get back to being dominant at home again.
All right, Coach, appreciate it. Panthers have now won 3 of their last 4 ball games in a tie right in the middle there with Arkansas State and Texas State in the league standings. It's still early. I know you don't follow the standings yet, but you know we do.
No, I don't do that.
And so let's keep it up. Let's keep it up this week.
Let's win the next one.
All right. I want to thank Georgia State's head basketball coach Ron Hunter joining us here. It's the first segment of this week's Georgia State Sports Update. We'll be talking a little women's basketball with Sharon Baldwin-Tenner coming up here on the Georgia State Sports Update.
He'll drive. He's stripped into the hands of Williams. He'll put up a shot. No good. Clayton back up and in. Dennis. Left hand. It's missed. Long pass stolen away, though. Ben Levy. Ben Levy to Hollowell. He'll drive to the bucket. Reverse layup. He'll kick. Ben Levy. Left wing 3. It's good.
We're back here in the Georgia State Sports Update. Again, for the show this week, we're talking Georgia State basketball. We've talked to head coach Ron Hunter. We welcome to this studio right now the women's basketball head coach, Sharon Baldwin-Tenner. Great to have you here. And like the men, and Coach Hunter just back from Louisiana. A little bit of a struggle. Weren't able to secure a win in the games at Lafayette and Monroe. Awfully close in Monroe. But the good thing is we're so early in the season. Obviously you want to win the games, but it's not a life or death situation right now with regards to seeding or any of that kind of stuff when it comes to looking at standings.
Right, absolutely. There's no question. I thought we played fairly well against Louisiana Lafayette. I think they have a really good basketball team, and we were right there in that game as well. We would cut it, and then we couldn't really get any closer. They would answer us, but I thought we did a lot of good things in that game. Went over to Monroe, and like you said, it was tied, three minutes left in the game, and we weren't able to finish it out. And I think we've got to get a little bit better at that. But the thing is, it is early in the season. I mean, we're tied with 4 at the bottom, but there are 4 that have 2 wins, and so we're right in the middle of the pack if we take care of business.
Going back to Lafayette, it's always a crazy game when the men play there. Do you find it to be a similar situation when the women play at the Cajun Dome in Lafayette? For whatever reason, and Coach and I talk about this, there's some sort of this rivalry, even though the men have only played now 13 times. Do you find a similar situation? For whatever reason, they just don't like Georgia State no matter which of our teams is going in there?
Well, I really don't feel that way. Their coach is very nice to me. I feel like Coach Hunter, they hug before the game, but no, I'm just kidding. But we, I have a lot of respect for the program he has, and we seem to get along. I don't really have hatred or anything like that. And I don't know, I don't listen to people talk to me during the game, so I'm not really sure if they're calling me names or not. I'll try to pay attention to that next time I go down there.
Again, this is our first show following the holiday break. We're talking women's basketball with Sharon Baldwin-Tenner. The news that you got early on, the loss of Madison Newby kind of changed direction, if that's the correct term, for your basketball team this year, because she was such a huge part. I mean, a returning, freshman from a year ago who really was kind of coming into her own after navigating that freshman season and having all that confidence going into her sophomore year. We lose her to an injury, a season-ending injury. And so you kind of have to stop on a dime and look at things again and figure it all out again and change plans a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question that Madison, she gave me some gray hairs last year, no question. But, she did lead the league in assists, which is a great thing to do even if you're not a freshman. But the fact she was a freshman, she also led them in turnovers. But the good thing was that was going to be behind her. As we were playing in our scrimmages and a couple of games that she played in, she's taking better care of the basketball and able to do some things. But I think something, too, that our team right now is lacking is getting to the free throw line from a perimeter player. And I think that's something that she could do late in the game. She was able to penetrate. She was strong and able to get in there. And so, the great thing is we had two freshman players that we could play as point guard. I don't really know that Jada Lewis is a point guard, but she's playing a lot of point guard right now. The ideal was for her to be on the wing and for Jalen to back up Madison and learn her way around a little bit. So she's been kind of thrown into it. So we've got two freshmen starting at the 1-2 spot. Now, the good thing is they don't turn the ball over like Madison did, but they also don't make quite as much happen getting to the free throw line and those sort of things. But they're learning, and I'll tell you, they're both competitors. They're getting better as they go along. Jada obviously is a much better scorer. She looks to get her shot. She can get out on the fast break. She can make a lot of things happen. But, everything had to be readjusted a little bit. We've got to make sure that the freshmen are ready to play. I mean, the great thing is I think they've responded, and I think they're getting a little bit more comfortable as we go along.
So with Jalen, as I'm hearing you tell this, it's almost like reliving Madison Newby all over again. They're different players. I'm not saying they're the exact kind of players, but from a coach's standpoint in trying to teach and bring them along, you're reliving that story a season later.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there are a lot of coaches in the country besides maybe Kentucky men's basketball that like a freshman point guard, unless they were the best player in the country. So, I think that's something that our team's got to adjust to, and they've got to learn a lot of different things. Timing is really big. It makes a difference. You got to get the ball exactly where it needs to go on time, or we won't get the shot, or we won't make the play. And I think those are things that they're both learning and they're both coming along with.
Came awfully close in both those Louisiana games, at Monroe as well. Let me go back, before you go back, your one conference win, which was a great win, and I remember it like we were standing there as you were getting ready to come on the radio on the postgame. Great win down at Statesboro, beating Georgia Southern in your conference opener. Yeah,
absolutely. That was a really fun game for us, and I've got to make sure I need to check the calendar next year and see if one of our players have a birthday, because last year, Stasia had her birthday. We played them on her birthday, and she actually hit the game-winning shot. This year we played on Tip's birthday, and she had 17 rebounds in a monster game and made plays down the stretch. So, that was really a great win for us to get started and gave us a lot of confidence, I think.
Well, you talk about a team, you just mentioned rebounding. I mean, this is you guys are one of the better rebounding teams in the Sun Belt Conference. If I look at the stats correctly, 18th in the country in offensive rebounding, which offensive rebounding is even more hustle than defensive rebounding because you got to want the ball, you got to go get it. Averaging about 16 offensive rebounds a game, and you're second in the league, 40 rebounds per ball game combined.
Yeah, I think that's something that we really emphasized from the beginning, and I think we've got to have more possessions than the others. I think we've cut down, for the most part, we do have games where we have too many turnovers, but We've cut down our turnovers a little bit, but we've got to get our shooting percentage up a little bit to go with those rebounds. Because second and third opportunities, that's huge.
Yeah.
You know, if you're able to get that and get a couple more shots at it, you've got a good chance.
You know, again, Coach Hunter and I on the radio always talk about turnovers. Is there a number? I think his number's around 11 or 12, and that's being generous.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd rather have under 10, as I'm sure you would. Is there a number where you feel like, okay, if we turn it over this amount, we're going to really struggle to win the ball game?
Yeah, I think normally when we play well, because we want to push the ball and we're going to turn it over some. I think if we can stay around 15 or 16, I think it's been a good game for us. I think we've had some games where we've had less. You know, ideally it'd be great to be at 10 as well, but I think anytime we get past that, we get to 17, 18, or we go above that, I think it's hard for us to win the basketball game. That's just giving them the ball that many times. So, you know, I think it puts you behind the 8 ball.
See, I asked that because, I mean, we were there at Monroe at the same time. The women played before the men's game, and I'm watching that game. You had a 12-point lead, I think, in the third quarter. But again, the key stat that kind of jumps out, they convert 21. They scored 28 points off 21 turnovers, which really makes it hard, no matter who you are, to win ball games.
Yeah, and the thing that is really frustrating with that is, you know, you've got some young players that are turning it over, that are making other things happen. For instance, Astasia had a great game offensively, except for the turnovers. She had 8 turnovers. That's as many as our whole team should have.
Right.
And then she would follow it up with a great play. And I mean, she makes a lot of things happen, but you know, a lot of them we've got to clean up ourselves. I think that they didn't cause or force a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think we did.
And those are the frustrating ones.
Yeah, those are the ones that just kill you. So, you know, that's what we've got to get better at. We've got to, you know, and as we go along and we get healthy as well and get everybody back playing, that'll take care of itself.
And again, last thing on turnovers, there are certain teams you can get away with maybe a few more turnovers than you would like. There's some teams, like for example, I don't know about the women, but when the men go into the Cajun Dome, you cannot afford to turn it over, you know, into the high double digits, or they're going to make you pay.
Right.
There are other teams you might be able to go into Monroe and you know, turn it over a little bit more than you like and get out of there with a win. So there are certain places and certain teams that are going to take better advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I think the team that is best at capitalizing on your turnovers is Troy. I mean, they get the ball down the court so fast anyway and score 100 points every night. You know, they want you to speed up and get those turnovers and go and convert them, definitely.
Tiffany Holston right now, 10 points, 9 rebounds, the average. She's currently third in the Sun Belt in rebounding, getting back to that rebounding. But, you know, you've got Holston with 10 and 9, and then Jada Lewis is averaging about 10 points a game. And you're averaging 61, in and around 61. You want that number obviously to be a little bit higher. You got to get to about between 65 and 70. And to go with your rebounding, you'd be set.
Yeah, I think if we could get to about 65, 67, we would be where we need to be. And I think our defense has got to get better as well. I think when it comes to Tip, we've got to have her on the floor more. I think that there have been games that she's gotten in foul trouble, and I think that's hurt us. She's a really good basketball player, and I think those numbers are too low. I think they should be higher than that. I think she should rebound more than that. I think she should score more than that, and I think our basketball team needs that. Jada Lewis as a freshman has played really phenomenal. I mean, she's had some games where she's really been good, and then there are a couple other games where she's been a freshman. You know, but I think that comes with being a freshman. But Tip being a grad student, she's played a lot of basketball. She understands. And I think we've really been working and watching a lot of film on her fouls and some of the things that we can do to correct that and keep her on the floor, because our team needs her on the basketball court.
Well, you know, you mentioned that 1-4 in league play. It's still very close because it's right behind a bunch of teams that only have 2 wins. Right now, Georgia State tied with Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, and Louisiana Monroe at 1-4. And, you know, you've got games coming up this weekend with App State, Coastal Carolina, I believe, coming in. It's an opportunity to shoot right up the standings and get in the middle of the pack there and kind of, you know, solidify yourself in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a big home stretch for us, and you know, I think we had a really good practice yesterday and today, and I think we're focused and we want to take one game at a time. We've got to take care of App State on Thursday.
All right, Coach, appreciate it. Good luck this coming week, and let's get a couple of W's and climb the standings there in the Sun Belt.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mark Becker, president of Georgia State University, here at Turner Field with Scott Taylor, president of Carter & Associates. We are proposing to redevelop this amazing site in ways that will honor the history of the Olympics, as well as 50 years of the Braves here in Atlanta, thereby also continuing the decades of work that Georgia State University has put into redeveloping downtown and our surrounding community.
Our public-private partnership has all the ingredients to change this part of our city forever. The private side of this project includes for sale single-family homes and townhomes, neighborhood retail and commercial, private student housing, as well as market-rate multifamily housing. But above all, we are committed to collaborating with the community on a development that will stimulate growth and vibrant economic activity for generations to come. We will build on the great momentum that's been established here by the Atlanta Braves and work hand in hand with the City of Atlanta and Fulton County on a plan that stands the test of time.
Coming up on the schedule this week at Georgia State, another busy few days for Georgia State men's and women's basketball. Here's what's coming up. On Thursday, January 19th, women's basketball hosting the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. They'll tip it off at 7 o'clock at the Sports Arena. A doubleheader on Saturday. The women will start the afternoon. 12 noon tip-off against the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. That'll be followed by the men's team taking on Coastal Carolina. That'll tip off at about 2:30 p.m. And then on Monday, men's basketball going to host Appalachian State in the Sports Arena at 7 o'clock. And that's what's going on this week in Georgia State athletics. That's on the schedule. It's our first show back after the holiday break. It's great to be back bringing you all the latest on Georgia State athletics. And for the entire crew, I'm Dave Cohen. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here next week on the Georgia State Sports Update.